and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I teach you traditional painting techniques using digital painting programs. This is part 5 of our Moonlight Waterfall series, and in this part I'm going to teach you how to paint the water. If you want a list of the traditional materials, go ahead and check out part 1 in this series, and I show you the kinds of paint that I use and the brushes and the canvas. The app that I'm going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android on my Samsung Galaxy Note 12.2 tablet. And we're going to start on the waterfall, and I have already underpainted the water with a dark blue and dark purple color. So for the next layer, we want a light blue or a light purple color. And I'm going to be using the Leo brush from the Infinite Painter, and if you're following along traditionally, your number 6 flat brush will be really good. And you want to use a dry brush stroke, which means you just get a little bit of paint on the end of your paintbrush and you make a light feathery stroke. And we want to go ahead and drag the water downwards and go ahead and use this feathery stroke on the edges and around the rocks. And don't cover up all the dark layer. You want to go ahead and let some of the dark show through, because this gives the water some depth and some form. Now we want to kind of give it a stair-step look or a shelf look, and this kind of makes it look like the water is falling in little shelves and little stair steps on the rocks. The rocks will give it this effect. When you reach the bottom, though, you want to go ahead and make horizontal strokes instead of vertical, because the water is going to be pooling at the bottom in the rocks and around the edges of the pool. And then go ahead and start on the smaller waterfall and use the same downward dragging technique with your brush. Go ahead and make little streams around the rocks on the side. And again, don't let all your dark be covered up. You kind of want to leave a little bit peeping through. Go ahead and make it look kind of stair-step-like or shelf-like. And you're not going to see the bottom of the second one, the bottom of the waterfall, because there'll be bushes there. But just go ahead and add some more highlights to the water, and this will be another layer. And we'll go ahead and take white acrylic gesso and go ahead and put cadmium yellow light, just a touch, because we don't want a real yellow look, just a tinted color. And go ahead and use the same technique, the dragging downward brush stroke and the feathery look, and don't cover up all the light blue or light purple that you've put. Try to let it show through a little bit. And again, just do the stair-step look or the shelf look. And go ahead and you can decrease the size of your brush to add little rivers along the side and make it look like there's little streams coming through the rocks. And for the shelves, you can also add a little bit of a horizontal look on top of the water. Not too much, but just to give it kind of a shelf-like look or a stair-step look. And go ahead and do this on both of the waterfalls, and go ahead and just find little pockets of light where you think the moonlight is hitting on the water, on the top of it, and go ahead and just pick little places to make rivulets of water, and so that it gives it a look like it's running around the rocks. Now, I'm blending it with using the Leo brush setting. And if you're doing this traditionally, you're going to want to blend it right away after you put the stroke on your canvas, especially if you're in a dry climate, because acrylics dry fast. so you can smudge it with your finger, or paper towel, whatever. Don't get rid of all the feathery look, but just go ahead and blend it a little. And for the digital part, I usually just wait till I put all the highlights on, and then I go back and I go ahead and blend it that way. Now I've picked the Angelo brush to go ahead and make splashes along the edges of my waterfall. And I want to do this, mainly on the edges because it's not going to show up much in the middle. You want to do it at the bottom of the waterfall, especially at the bottom of the waterfall, because that's where the water is hitting the rocks the hardest and it's going to splash the biggest. And you want to go ahead and do it on the sides because it looks like it's hitting rocks and splashing. And then you want to go ahead and touch up the waterfall a little bit more. And you can go ahead and get a darker blue or a darker purple and add little pockets of dark back in the waterfall. If you've covered up too much of your underpainting, don't worry, just go back and add little dark pockets in there and make it look more shelf-like and a little bit rougher. And that's what I'm doing here at the top of that little waterfall, is making it look rougher. And down here, making it look like there's hidden rocks underneath the water. And then you want to go ahead and make the sides look a little bit more jagged. So I've got some dark blue and dark purple, and I put in rocks in the middle of the water to make it look like the water's running around it. And then at the bottom and in the pool at the bottom, make some rocks stick up, and then go ahead and put some in the little waterfall to make it look like the water's running in little streams around the rocks. And this just gives interest to your waterfall. Some waterfalls do fall just straight down, but we want this one to get kind of a rocky look to it. So then you're going to go ahead and highlight those rocks and make them look wet. So you want a really bright highlight on these rocks because they're in the water and they're catching the moonlight and it's glinting off the wet surface of the rocks. So you want to go ahead and highlight these rocks with acrylic, white acrylic gesso with a touch of cadmium yellow. And then you can go back in, and here I went ahead and just blended the dark in again and made it, look a little bit more rough on the waterfall and kind of uneven, and just to give it interest. And so I go ahead and pick and find little pockets of dark and light just to give your painting some interest. And I go ahead and make it more shelf-like at the top just to give it a stair-step look. Like I said, some waterfalls are straight, but this one is kind of a meandering, winding waterfall, and that just makes your picture look more interesting. So go ahead and add some white back if you think you could put in too much dark, and that's what I'm doing here. It's just kind of a process of going back and forth, adding light, adding dark, just till you're satisfied, till you get the look that you want. And you can go ahead and add in some dark spots for rocks sticking through if you want to. And here the program was kind of smearing more than I wanted it to, so I went back and lightened that spot. But just go ahead and pick places for light and dark that you think will give interest. Sometimes you cover up things too much, you get too much white or you get too much dark. You just have to go back and fix that. So this is the end of part 5 of our Moonlight waterfall painting. And in our next painting, part 6, we're going to go ahead and start refining all the details throughout the whole picture. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and I will catch you later.